Welcome you all to Believers Science Academy. In today's topic of the day discussion, we will be discussing about the COP30 and the global climate agenda action. COP30 is set to take place in Belém, that is your Brazil, which is planning to host the summit. And However, this is going to be a very important moment because it arrives at a moment when climate change is no longer a distant threat but a lived reality in the present conditions or present days, considering how often the floods, the heat waves, and even the rising seas have made climate action a survival priority, right? So, with the Paris Agreement deadlines, which are pretty much tightening over the edge, the world now looks to COP30 as the summit where promises must turn into pathways. So, Belém, which is at the edge of the Amazon rainforest, is more than just a venue. So, it is a remember that the planet's most powerful climate stabilizer is under unprecedented stress. So, COP30's symbolism and substance meet here in this particular place, and it's absolutely important to discuss why this COP matters, right? So, because ultimately we have to see that this COP is a representation of commitments to implementations, all the while ensuring how climate change is addressed. Because COP30 is currently branded as the implementation COP, driven by the findings of the global stock take, that is also called as GST. So this GST confirmed what climate scientists feared, that the global progress is far behind what is needed to stay within the 1.5-degree pathway. So this COP aims to push countries beyond the rhetorics, especially the agenda emphasizes to mostly focus on energy, industry, transport, right, and various other sectors. And also not just that, in order to even extend its protections focus to safeguard the forests, oceans, climate proofing the cities, and also the farming. And ultimately, even this even extends to forests and even oceans, as we discussed, right? So ultimately this is an indication or a moment where we have to see how COP takes a leap from the commitments that it previously had, ultimately in terms of how it is going to implement. So with respect to the climate finance, there is something that we have to discuss, so which is absolutely like a toughest roadblock, right? So the major pillar is the climate finance roadmap. So from moving from 300 billion US dollars annual goal, which was earlier set in COP29, to almost like $1.3 million in 2035. So this particular roadmap, right, this is where global politics actually tightens, because developing nations argue that $300 billion is far below the real needs, which run mostly into trillions. And rich countries want to include all actors, which is pretty much a phrase that tries to shift the responsibility from the historic emitters, right? From the historic emitters, like mostly all these big industries, right, from the historic emitters to everyone. So now the burden is being transferred to everyone, saying that all actors, I mean, which pretty much means that everyone is responsible, right? It is like playing a blame game, right? And hence we can also conclude that accountability mechanisms also have remained vague. And also the loss and damage fund, created with the great hope in COP 28, also continues to suffer from poor funding. So these are all the huge bottlenecks that even today that the COP has. So without the credible finance, energy transition schemes, and the adaptation measures, the risk, or let's say these risks becoming hollow targets, right? So that is one of the biggest problem or the bottleneck with respect to the COP. And however, for the first time, in this COP 30, it is expected to pretty much come up with a new adaptation push, right? Pretty much like a global adaptation framework, which is quantifiable, and they've called it GGA, which is Global Goal on Adaptation, which aims to set measurable resilience targets, match finance to on-ground needs, which pretty much aligns with the needs of the grounds of the people and even the earth, and then also result tracking, where it tracks the adaptation results at global and local levels. So also, most importantly, one of the strong feature which it is also trying to include is the embedment of the rich knowledge, especially the indigenous knowledge and the traditional knowledge of the people as well, especially considering India's long history of community-led water conservation and ecosystem management offers the models for other developing nations as a blueprint, right? So another vertical is with respect to the net zero and the just transition debate. So achieving net zero requires shifting entire economic systems, but for countries still striving to lift people out of poverty, transition must be fair and affordable, right? So hence COP 30 will try to revisit to make sure that it can help people, or that will ensure access to clean technology, which is affordable tech for the developing nations, right? It will also work for or work towards capacity building, right, and also ensure green jobs to create sustainable employment opportunities, and also mostly worker protection, right, protecting the workers, especially in coal dependent regions and everything. So, right, so a just transition is not just a climate question but a development question as well, so hence becomes absolutely important as well. So now, with respect to the national determined contributions, right, the NDC stands for national determined contributions, which are pretty much like the backbone of the Paris Agreement, yet updated. NDCs currently cover only around 19% of the global emissions. This, however, highlights both a lack of ambition and a lack of political will, because COP 30 is expected to pressure major economies to update their NDCs. Number one, this is very important, and second most important thing is it will also try to adopt more achievable emission reduction targets, like having more realistic targets to themselves, and third most importantly, integrate biodiversity goals into climate planning, right? So this is also one of the important aspect. Next is the climate and biodiversity, which is the new convergence that Brazil's proposal for a tropical forest forever facility, right? So that is something very important. The Brazil's proposal, which they have asked for the tropical forest forever facility, which adds a fresh dimension, right? So it links payments directly to forest conservation, allowing countries like India, Brazil, Indonesia, and Congo to monetize ecosystem protection. So the Amazon, the Congo Basin, and the Southeast Asian rainforests could become pillars of both climate stability and green funding models as well, right? So countries can monetize ecosystem protection whilst ensuring climate stability. Now, if we try and see what is the role of India, so India enters COP 30 in two different identities, right? Dual identities is what we can call it. So first, as like a nation with ambitious clean energy goals, and also a developing economy demanding fairness, right? So this is also the one of the stands of India. So however, India focuses on some of the important key areas. So first is the climate justice, which is absolutely one of the topmost priority and the most important. Next is predictable and adequate finance, low cost technology transfer, protection of developmental space, and adaptation support for vulnerable populations. And also, domestic efforts like green budgeting, carbon markets are also evolving, but it also require further institutional strengthening. But even this is also one of the key focus areas of India's as well. So, in the end, the conclusion, COP 30, we just have to understand what's at stake at Belem, right? Because COP 30 will not be remembered for announcements alone, because it's a real test lies in whether it can produce, number one, a clear climate finance architecture, and also try to have, or will it be able to sufficiently give a stronger adaptation planning, and then number three, meaningful updates to NDCs, right, according to the plans, and then also about better integration of biodiversity and climate agendas, and also the credible pathways for a just transition. So with the Amazon as its backdrop and Paris Agreement clock ticking, COP30 can reshape the next decade of climate action, especially for India and other developing nations. So it is both a diplomatic opportunity and a developmental turning point as well. So anyway, that's all for this particular video. We'll meet in another topic of the day. Stay tuned.